Oh, it started by itself. Okay.
Alright, you can just crop it.
Hi, Danica. How's it going?
Yeah, good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Um, so, before we get into what's brought you here today, I wouldn't mind asking you a few questions about, your family, your current circumstances, whether you're working, studying, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, do you mind getting started, maybe talking about your life and what you
Yeah,
think is important?
that sounds good. Yep.
Also, I might take some notes down, just to kind of keep on track with everything and yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Go
All
ahead.
right, awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
So, what's your family like?
Um, yeah, my family is good. I've moved to Melbourne probably about 14 years ago, but my family is based out in Queensland, so I don't see them that as much. Um, yeah, I mean, I've got a bit of an interesting family in a way because they're sort of fundamentalist Christians, and I kind of don't share their worldview, and yeah, they kind of yeah, I guess it's a big sort of divide between us, you might say, because pretty much my whole sort of family is involved in that, and I'm one of the only ones, myself and my sister, that aren't part of the church. So yeah, so I don't see them that much, and yeah, we live in different states.
Oh, okay, yep. So, just let me rephrase that. So, your family is from Queensland.
Mm-hmm.
Are you the only one here in Melbourne?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, yep. And your family is fundamentalist Christian besides you and your sister, was that correct?
Yes, yeah,
Oh,
pretty much.
okay. Well, what about work or education? What's been going on in your daily life?
Yeah, sure. I yeah, up until a few months ago, I was working full time. I worked for years in like finance. I worked for this sort of stationery company. They sort of sell stationery and sell wholesale to other retailers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I was also studying part time as well, and now I'm doing a year of full time study, so I've sort of gradually slowed down my work that I'm doing with the stationery company, and yes, I'm just doing full time study at the moment.
Oh, cool. So full-time studies. When did you work in?
Around about March.
That much?
Yeah.
So how's your financial situation? Is everything going smoothly?
Yeah, everything's good. Yeah, I was able to save quite a bit when we went into lockdown.
Oh, yeah.
So I kind of, I was in lockdown for about a year, and I was still working at the time and just working remotely. So for financial reasons, that was good for me.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds like you've set yourself up to be in a good position,
Yeah.
particularly with your full-time studies.
Mhm.
So what are you studying at the moment?
I'm studying psychology.
Oh,
Actually.
awesome! Yeah. So you'll be where I am soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool.
So I'm just doing my fourth year honours year, and yeah.
Our fourth year, that would be pretty intense. At least I found it pretty intense.
Yeah, it is pretty intense. Yeah, it's just sort of ramping up recently, so it's pretty full on. But yeah, stressing me out a bit actually.
Yeah, I can imagine. So yeah, thanks for giving me a fair bit of background. I really appreciate that. I can kind of see where you're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but now I want to get into the things that brought you here today.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so what would you say would be the main concern or issue that's brought you here?
Yeah, sure. Um, yeah, like I said when we went into lockdown, I found that really tough sort of process being so isolated, and I just feel like even though things are slowly getting back to normal, I feel like I'm not getting back to normal. I feel like
Mhm.
I've got this sort of carryover sort of depression from being in an isolation. I found that while I was in lockdown, I was kind of, sort of getting into a very negative mindset, while all this pandemic was going on. I was sort of following the news quite closely and sort of getting anxious about it. So, I sort of got really heavy into watching the news and getting involved in sort of international politics in the news. And I just feel like it sort of changed my mindset quite a bit, in that it sort of, gave me a real sort of negative view of the world. I felt like people responded to the pandemic, it brought out the best and worst in people, and I was just kind of shocked and surprised, I guess, at some of the bad things people were doing, and sort of denial of science and sort of behaviours, protesting against lockdowns and things. And I guess I sort of, started to sort of form a bit of a negative mindset about the world. And I've just been finding it hard to dig myself out of those feelings, and I feel like it's still carrying on now. And and I just feel like I'm sort of less sociable. I'm finding it really hard to get back into social activities. I feel like that social isolation is sort of become part of my life now. I feel a bit more reluctant to go out, and I just feel like I need some counselling to sort of stop this sort of negative thought spirals I'm in.
Okay.
And kind of just sort of get me out there, and sort of I just really want to get back to normal, because I just don't like how I'm feeling right now.
Yeah, I think that's a normal feeling, especially during COVID. I had a lot of clients, and even myself, really struggled with being in lockdown for such a long time. Being the country with the longest lockdown in the world, which is quite insane. So I think it's quite reasonable to think that way, and it's thrown a lot of people off the horse, so to speak. So just to reiterate, you feel like during isolation that you have had symptoms of depression, and that the news has maybe made you a bit more anxious, and that you've been feeling less sociable.
I feel like I feel like I didn't really pay much attention to politics in the news before, and in lockdown I just got so entranced, I guess, by American politics specifically, because it was so crazy. And I was just, what sort of precipitated this negative mindset is that I feel like I discovered a lot of things about the world during that time. I feel like before lockdown I was quite naive about how things worked, and I feel like I've just learned a bit of more unpleasant things about the world, and I'm starting to be really worried about the future, like worried about people's denial of science and climate change and all that sort of thing, and I worry in like real terms, like how that's going to affect my future. And I've just got changed to have this really bleak view of this future, and I don't know whether it's because I'm watching sensationalist news programs that tend to catastrophize and focus in on the drama to get sort of eyeballs onto the screen. or part of me thinks that I'm looking at the world now for the first time with a more realistic view, and that frightens me, because I sort of think, how do I stop feeling like this? If the world is truly a scary place, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like I understand what you mean. You're talking about how your view of the world has kind of changed, and that you're not sure if it's whether it's because the news outlets in America are doing that for more views,
they're very good at it too.
Yeah, they are. Well, there's actually, some
Yeah.
research that shows that, bad news, gets more viewers, and
That's right. Yeah.
so they do tend to, flare things up maybe a
Mhm.
bit worse than what they usually are.
Yeah.
And conversely, a lot of the news stations in America, they are politically owned. So, like, you got your different parties, and then different news outlets will have like certain sides and try and get the worst of like the other parties and that type of thing. So
It's quite
can
crazy
be-
actually. They're kind of, it's like you watch one, say, affiliated to the left side of thinking, and then you watch the right, and it's like opposite day every day,
Yeah.
where they sort of have the opposite news. It's nuts.
Yeah.
I went crazy watching that, and I watched it so much. Like I'd go to sleep watching it. I sort of got really heavy into MSNBC, which is really left associated network, and yeah, I would go to sleep watching YouTube, and I found that I got some really bad sort of sleep habits over COVID too, because I just had so much time on my hands, so I'd just go to sleep listening to it, and I'd wake up in the middle of the night and it'd still be running, and I'd sort of tune in some more, because I started watching the American news because they run on different cycles to us, so at night time when I'd be sort of have my sort of bouts of insomnia, I'd have all these news stations that would be running, so I'd watch them.
Okay.
And
Sorry, not to interject there. So you said you've been having insomnia.
Mhm.
How long has that been going for?
I've had it on and off, but I've really gotten bad with my real bad habits of taking the computer to bed and watching YouTube in bed, and just letting YouTube sort of just run on from clip to clip to clip, so it just runs all night. But I've gotten into such a bad habit that I feel like I can't sleep if I don't have it on, and don't have this sort of noise in the background.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I really need to work on that actually. It's one thing that I'll probably need to really address, because I think it sort of creates more anxiety. I'm sort of quite tired all the time, and I feel like I'm not getting enough sleep, or and it's also filling my head with all this intense
Yeah.
information just carrying on to my waking life as well. So
It's always
kind of-
pretty interesting with the news as well, with Trump and the
Yeah, it's
dichotomy of the
wild.
nation. Yeah, but
Yeah.
I am honestly glad to see that you're aware that this is adversely impacting your sleep,
Mhm.
and that you're aware of it's a problem, because that's the first step in addressing that issue.
Mhm.
So there has been some research that has kind of shown that on your screen is actually like the lights, and you have this thing called like white light,
Mhm.
red light.
Mhm.
So there's this red light filter most phones can get,
Mhm.
which reduces the amount of white light which is associated with the sun.
Yeah.
And generally, because we're humans, and a bright light, we're like, oh, that's the sun, right? So
Circadian rhythms.
Yeah.
Are out of whack.
so
Yeah.
viewing like screens at night actually tricks your brain into thinking it's more alert, and
Mhm.
it should be daytime.
Yeah.
So I can see, if you're watching, YouTube at night, then that could be causing your circadian rhythm to go off a bit.
Yeah.
Are you currently on any medications or anything for insomnia?
No. Well, I've started taking recently melatonin, but I still have these weird sleep patterns where I sort of still wake up in the middle of the night, and I stay awake for hours. And because the YouTube's still running, it just kind of wakes up, catches my interest. I wake up and catches my interest, and then I end up staying up hours in the middle of the night. Rather than, I think maybe if I didn't have YouTube, I'd probably maybe just fall asleep more naturally. But it tends to just wake me up and keep me awake. So I've really got to work on it.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is, you're quite aware of the situation. It might be, adversely influencing your sleeping patterns, which is, quite a good realization. Have you thought of any alternatives, of noise to help you fall asleep?
Um, I haven't really, but you're right. I could absolutely listen to a meditation tape or something that sort of has a cut off of an hour or something like that, instead of just having YouTube just run wild. But yeah, I haven't tried it, but I could definitely do that. Yeah, because I guess with the aim that if I fell asleep during that time, it would just sort of stop and go dark, and then I might have a more successful long-term sleep in that case. But yeah, I haven't been sort of disciplined enough to mix up my sleeping habits too much. It's too easy when I go to bed just to keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, it can get like that sometimes. I'll refer to that a bit later in the session, and we'll have a look at some potential homework you could do to facilitate your optimal sleeping patterns.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So we'll digress for now. I kind of want to get back to the feelings of your depression. Has anything? Do you think anything's been triggering that depression besides the news and a bit of anxiety, maybe lack of sleep?
Yeah, maybe. I think, yeah, I mean, certainly the isolation in the lockdown, so much time on my hands, too much time to sort of think and sort of not get out of my own head. That was a problem. I found that my family too has sort of, with their fundamentalist beliefs, they're quite sort of apocalyptic in their vision of the future. So, whilst I don't have a lot of contact with them because their practice is to shun people that aren't believers, so they don't talk to me much unless there's death in the family or something like that. So it was interesting to me that they were getting in touch with me, but they were sort of getting in touch because the pandemic really fit into their apocalyptic view. So it was their view that this is a sign of the end of times. So I had various, because I've got quite a big family. I'm one of 6 kids, and I've got 5 siblings. So yeah, it was out of the blue, but then I realised that the church was sort of directing them to contact wayward family members and people they know to get them on board because the end of the world's coming, sort of thing. And yeah, I had sort of family members sort of contacting me and trying to bring me back into the fold, as they say, and sort of talking, about Christian values and things like that. So yeah, in a way that was kind of, it was nice that they were contacting me, but yeah, I think, the reasons they were doing it was because really, they had ulterior motives.
So I might just stop you there real quick. I just want to get a sense if I'm getting this correctly or not. So during the the isolation, you basically started feeling a bit depressed, not being able to get out of the house, and maybe being a bit more caught up in your head. But your family has tried to reach out with you, which is generally a good thing to have that family familiar with support. But you feel like they might be doing it with ulterior motives because of their religious beliefs and affiliations. Does that sound correct?
Yeah, good intentions, of course, but yeah, definitely, they have reasons to do it. Yeah.
So tell me more about your family.
Well, they're of the Jehovah's Witness faith. I don't know if you know much about that. Do you?
Methodist faith? No.
Jehovah's Witness.
Oh, Jehovah's Witness.
So their view is that God's going to, Armageddon's coming, and only the one true religion will survive, which is, of course, they're the one true religion. And and they've been saying it for years. They've had a lot of predictions about it, which haven't come true, obviously. But part of their believe is the ever present threat of, you know, the end of times coming, and that's kind of, I think it's a very effective way to inspire their followers to sort of keep going, because they're a religion that sort of tries to recruit new members. They go out witnessing, as they call it, which is kind of door-to-door kind of preaching that tries to bring people into the religion. So yeah, they're pretty heavy duty. They demand a lot from their followers. They have strict policies that, and if you don't comply, they can throw you out of the religion, and you know, that's when people won't talk to you because you're not of faith. So yeah, it's pretty hardcore religion. It's pretty strict, and yeah, you know, members have to go to church 3 times a week and preach on weekends, and yeah, it's not like you're just go to Sunday and maybe Easter holidays and stuff sort of church. It's like your whole life is dedicated to it.
Yeah, I imagine that could be very full on and quite confrontational.
Yeah, going against it definitely is, because I don't believe in that at all. Yeah, so it's definitely been a big sort of thing in my life that's defined my life in a way, and yeah, and I still have to deal with it really, because I'm still dealing with family members that are in it.
Yeah. So how has that affected you? You know, throughout the span of your life, not being.
Well, you know, it's certainly my relationship with my family is pretty fraught because of it. One thing I noticed was that, you know, that's another thing along with my sort of negative thoughts and depression and stuff over the lockdown. You know, there's a lot of anger in it too. You know, I started to get angry at people being, you know, showing ignorance about science, about like rejecting vaccines and all of that stuff. And, you know, I started to get angry at my family too, because, you know, I sort of look at them as sort of the same kind of ignorance, in that they expecting God to fix everything, so they're sort of, you know, not doing things towards climate change and that sort of thing that we need to do, because, you know, they've got this other view that this world is temporary and God's going to fix it anyway. And yeah, I think during the lockdown, my frustrations and my, you know, views sort of like got amplified, and yeah, it's really unpleasant to be in that state. I just want to, you know, sort of tone it down, get a little bit less anxious and angry, and just sort of get back to normal. But yeah, it's sort of been slowly, even though lockdown, everything's sort of seemingly going back towards normal, I feel like these thoughts and feelings are lingering, and they're not, I'm not able to resolve them.
Okay, so it sounds like you have some pent-up resentment, anger, anxiousness towards dealing with your family, and, you know, their opposing, you know, values and belief systems, because they're, you know, very religious, anti-vaxxers, you know, that type of thing. And
they're not anti-vaxxers, but sort of viewing them in the same vein as being sort of ignorant of the facts. But yeah, they and I didn't feel like that before. This is something that's new, and it surprises me that I'm getting angry about it. And I think it's just all part and parcel of this sort of amplified emotional energy that I have, and yeah, I'm just getting wild about things, about the world, about family, about,
so, you know. What are your usual thoughts that happen before or after or during the time you get angry?
I guess I certainly ruminate too much on the negative. You know, with my family, I sort of have thoughts like, you know, just because one thing about my family is that I'm not able to express my views because they're contrary to them, and if I did fully express my view that, because I'm sort of atheist really, if I did actually voice that view, they wouldn't have a choice but to completely cut off association with me. I mean, our association is minimal at the moment, but if I was, so yeah, I get frustrated that I'm not able to be open and honest, and yeah, then I get mad that they're not curious enough about the world, that they just take the religious beliefs as fact and they've never looked outside the boundaries of that faith. They have just completely safe in their bubble of understanding the world through the lens of that religion, and that's, they've never looked outside of it.
Yeah.
It really makes me mad because it affects me too. I just, how can you have a relationship with someone when you can't express your true feelings and your true view of the world and philosophies on life? That's,
I feel like with parents, it's particularly important to have that unconditional support. So I can imagine it feel quite terrible, not having that unconditional support where despite your beliefs you can still get along and express those differences without that feeling of judgment.
Yeah, it's very conditional on my having the same view as them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just going to take a minute to absorb this for a second. We have about 5 minutes left actually. So what we might do is actually wrap this up. As I mentioned earlier, with the homework, you're quite aware, about, the habit of sleeping with YouTube. You said that, even like with meditation, music might be a good idea.
Yeah.
I think you're spot on, meditation music, or maybe like, white noise filter, one of those things might be quite beneficial. Give it a go, swap it out, see if it helps. Because one of the factors with sleep as well is if you're getting inadequate sleep, you can feel more anxious and depressed.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be a good step in the right direction, something an easy fix, so to speak. Give that one a go. And in relation to the other things you've told me, I think the other things might take a bit longer to work on. For instance, with your family, you can't really control your family and their beliefs, so we're going to have to work on how you appraise the situation, your thoughts in relation to that. And we can make you less angry and less anxious just by altering a few of the thought processes you have. I'll give you more homework for that, in the subsequent week. That will take a while to change, particularly because these, patterns of thought come ingrained in our brain, and the actual neural pathways get strengthened. So it's, on a physiological level as well, we would change that. Honestly, I think it's quite normal. Like even I was going through a bit of I gained 20 kilos over
Wow.
the isolation period because I stopped walking to work and didn't have work for a while as well. So like a lot of people I meet as well have the similar issues. So you're not in this alone. You're in this together. A lot of people are. I just wanted to ask if you'd have any questions about anything we've talked about today.
No, it was just really good to get it off my chest.
Okay.
But
what about for next week? Do you have anything in particular you'd like to talk about next week?
Not really. Probably there might be these issues, and I know it's quite broad in general, but maybe we can sort of talk more specifically about that next week. But if I can sort of overcome my anxiety and get less sort of anxious, and sort of depressed, I think, that's really my goal.
Awesome. So like I said, yeah, the cognitive behavioral therapy will take a while to kick in. It's a long-term thing, but yeah, in the short term, addressing that, sleeping, bad sleeping habit, as you said it, is a brilliant way to start, and yeah, hopefully we'll, start seeing, gains pretty soon.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm my own worst enemy, really. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Right, thanks so much for coming here, Danica. Sorry, we're currently out of time.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'll see you next week.
All right then.